The rain hammered against the diner's grimy windows, like thousands of tiny fists demanding entry. I could hear each drop, feel the vibration through the cracked vinyl booth where I'd been sitting for the past hour, nursing a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. My fingers trembled as I wrapped them around the ceramic mug, seeking warmth that wasn't there anymore. Outside, the city looked like it was drowning. Neon signs bleeding their colors into puddles, headlights cutting through the downpour like knives through silk. I was exhausted. The kind of bone-deep exhaustion that comes from working double shifts at the hospital, from standing on swollen feet for 12 hours straight, from smiling at patients when all I wanted to do was collapse. My scrubs still smelled faintly of antiseptic and that particular scent hospitals have. A mixture of bleach, fear, and something indefinably sad. I'd come to this diner because I couldn't face my apartment yet, couldn't face the silence, the emptiness, the envelope hidden in my drawer that I'd been avoiding for 3 days, the ultrasound. My hand moved unconsciously to my stomach, flat and unremarkable beneath my jacket. 3 months, 12 weeks, a secret growing inside me that I'd decided, no, that I'd had to decide, couldn't exist. Tomorrow I had an appointment. Tomorrow this would all be over, and I could go back to being invisible. To being no one. To surviving. The bell above the diner's door chimed, and a gust of wet wind swept through the space. I didn't look up. I'd perfected the art of not looking up, of making myself smaller, of disappearing into the background. It was a skill you learned when you grew up the way I did. In foster homes, in the shadows, in spaces where being noticed meant danger. But then I smelled it. Leather. Expensive cologne. Something dark and woody with notes of bergamot. And beneath it, something else. Gunpowder. Money. Power. My eyes lifted despite myself, and I saw him. He stood in the doorway like he owned not just the diner, but the entire city block. Water dripped from his black coat. Cashmere, I thought. The kind that cost more than I made in 6 months. His dark hair was slicked back, rain-dampened, revealing a face that belonged on magazine covers or movie screens. Sharp jawline, high cheekbones, lips that looked cruel and beautiful at the same time, but it was his eyes that made my breath catch. Dark, almost black, they swept across the diner with the precision of someone who calculated threats and exits in milliseconds. 2 men flanked him, massive, suited, with the kind of vigilance that screams security. They didn't sit. They positioned themselves, one by the door, one by the window, both with their hands resting near their jackets in a way that made my nurse's instinct scream weapons. He moved to the counter, and I watched. God help me, I couldn't stop watching. As the tired waitress straightened immediately, her practiced weariness vanishing into something like fear mixed with awe. He said something low, and she nodded so fast I thought her neck might snap. I should have looked away, should have made myself invisible again. But our eyes met. For exactly 3 seconds, his gaze locked onto mine, and I felt it like a physical touch, like electricity, like standing too close to a fire. Something flickered in those dark eyes. Recognition, maybe, though that was impossible. We'd never met. I would have remembered. Then he looked away, and I could breathe again. I grabbed my purse with shaking hands, threw a $5 bill on the table, too much for cold coffee, but I didn't care, and stood. My legs felt unsteady. I needed to leave. Needed to get away from whatever that was, from the way the air itself seemed to have changed when he walked in. The rain was worse when I pushed outside. Within seconds I was soaked, my jacket plastered to my skin, my hair hanging in wet ropes around my face. The bus stop was 3 blocks away. I could make it. I could... Miss. The voice came from behind me, smooth and deep, with an accent I couldn't quite place. European, maybe. Cultured. I froze, 1 foot in a puddle, rain streaming down my face. I turned slowly. He stood under the diner's awning, dry and untouchable, while I drowned in the storm. One of his security guards held an umbrella. But it wasn't for him. It was extended toward me, an offering. "You'll catch your death," he said, and there was something in his voice that made it sound less like concern and more like a command, like my health was suddenly his business, his responsibility, his right to manage. "I'm fine," I managed, my voice smaller than I wanted. "The bus stop is close. No bus runs this route after midnight." He stepped forward, into the rain, and suddenly he was close enough that I could see the water droplets on his eyelashes, could smell that intoxicating scent of leather and danger. "My driver will take you home." It wasn't a question. "I don't accept rides from strangers," I said, trying to sound firm, trying to channel some strength I didn't feel. His lips curved, not quite a smile. "Intelligent. But you're soaked, exhausted, and swaying on your feet. Pride is expensive when you can't afford it." The words stung, because they were true. I was barely keeping myself upright, barely keeping everything together. And he'd seen it. Seen through me in seconds. "I don't know you," I whispered. "No," he agreed, "but I know exhaustion when I see it. I know when someone is running on empty." His eyes dropped, just for a moment, to my stomach. My hand was still there, protective, unconscious. When his gaze returned to my face, something had shifted. Sharpened. "Let me help you." Every instinct screamed danger. This man radiated it like heat from a furnace. But I was so tired, so cold. And the bus really wasn't running. I'd forgotten that. Forgotten it was past midnight, forgotten everything except the weight of the secret I was carrying. "Just to the nearest subway station," I heard myself say. His smile widened, transforming his face from beautiful to devastating. Of course. The car was exactly what I expected. A black Mercedes with windows so tinted they looked like sheets of obsidian. The interior smelled like leather and wealth. And when I sank into the back seat, it felt like being swallowed by luxury I had no right to touch. He slid in beside me, close enough that his thigh almost touched mine, and the driver, a man built like a tank, pulled smoothly into traffic without a word. "You work at St. Mary's Hospital," he said, not asking. Stating. My blood went cold. "How do you—" "Your badge." He nodded toward my jacket, where my ID was clipped, partially visible. But there was something in his eyes that suggested he'd known before that, had known the moment he saw me. "Long shift?" "Double," I said, my voice tight. "Someone called in sick. You look like you haven't slept in days." "I'm fine." "You keep saying that." His fingers drummed once on his knee, a gesture that somehow conveyed impatience and control. "You're not fine. You're running yourself into the ground." "You don't know anything about me," I snapped, surprising myself with the venom in my voice. He turned fully toward me then, and in the car's dim interior, his face was all shadows and sharp angles. "I know you're afraid. I know you're alone. I know you're carrying something heavier than exhaustion." My hand flew to my stomach again, protective, panicked. Could he know? How could he possibly? "I should get out here," I said quickly as we approached a red light. "This is fine. Thank you for—" His hand caught my wrist. Not hard, not painful, but absolutely immovable. The touch sent electricity racing up my arm, and I gasped. "We're not near the subway," he said quietly. "And you're not getting out until you're somewhere safe. Let go of me." In a moment. His thumb pressed against my pulse point, feeling the frantic beat of my heart. "You're terrified. Of me, yes. But of something else. Something bigger." "Please," I whispered, hating how my voice broke. "Just let me go." He released me immediately, hands returning to his lap, but the imprint of his touch remained, burning on my skin. "I'm not going to hurt you. Men who say that usually do. Fair enough." He leaned back, giving me space. But his eyes never left my face. "Then let me prove it. Tell my driver your address. He'll take you home. You'll never see me again." It was exactly what I wanted, should have been what I wanted, but there was something in his voice, a note of finality, of door closing, that made my chest tighten inexplicably. "Cathedral Heights," I said finally. "The apartments on 5th Street." I saw something flash in his eyes. Surprise? Concern? The neighborhood wasn't dangerous exactly, but it wasn't good either. The kind of place where sirens were background music and domestic disputes echoed through paper-thin walls. "I know it," was all he said. The drive took 15 minutes. 15 minutes of loaded silence, of stolen glances, of my heart racing for reasons I couldn't name. When we pulled up in front of my building, a 6-story concrete block that looked gray even in the neon glow of the liquor store across the street, he got out first. "You don't have to," I started. "I'm walking you to your door. That's really not negotiable." He extended his hand, and after a moment, I took it. His palm was warm, calloused in unexpected places, strong enough to pull me effortlessly from the car. The rain had softened to drizzle, but he still positioned himself between me and the street, his body a shield I hadn't asked for. The building's entrance smelled like mildew and old cooking. The elevator was broken. It had been broken for 2 months. So we climbed. 4 flights of stairs, my legs protesting every step, my breath coming harder as we ascended. He stayed 1 step behind me, close enough that I could feel his presence like heat against my back. When we reached my floor, I fumbled for my keys, my hands shaking from exhaustion and something else, something I didn't want to name. "Thank you," I managed, key sliding into the lock. "For the ride. It was kind. I'm rarely accused of kindness." His voice was low, intimate in the narrow hallway. "But you're welcome." I should have gone inside. Should have closed the door, locked it, ended whatever this was. Instead, I turned to face him one last time. He was closer than I'd realized, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. In the hallway's harsh fluorescent light, I could see details I'd missed before. A scar through his left eyebrow, faint lines around his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and hard decisions, and something in his gaze that looked almost like hunger. "What's your name?" I whispered. "Does it matter?" "No, probably not." His hand rose, and I thought he might touch my face, might cross that final inch of space between us. Instead, his fingers caught a strand of my wet hair, tucking it gently behind my ear. The gesture was so tender, so at odds with everything else about him, that my breath caught. "Go inside," he murmured. "Lock your door. Get some sleep." "I don't even know how to thank you properly." "Then don't." He stepped back, creating distance, though his eyes remained locked on mine. "Just take care of yourself. Whatever you're facing, whatever decision you're making." His gaze dropped again, just for a heartbeat, to my stomach. "Make sure it's what you want, not what circumstances demand." Cold dread flooded through me. He couldn't know. He couldn't possibly. But before I could respond, before I could demand answers, he was gone. Moving down the hallway with that liquid grace, descending the stairs, disappearing like smoke. I stumbled into my apartment, locked the door with trembling hands, and collapsed against it. My heart was racing. My skin felt too hot, too tight. And despite everything, despite the danger, despite the fear, despite every rational thought, I felt more alive than I had in months. I pushed away from the door, my wet shoes squeaking against the cheap linoleum, and moved through my small apartment on autopilot. It wasn't much. A studio with a kitchenette that barely functioned, a bathroom with water pressure that fluctuated between trickle and flood, and a bed pushed against the wall beneath a window that didn't close properly, but it was mine. The first place that had ever truly been mine. I peeled off my soaked clothes, leaving them in a heap on the bathroom floor, and stood under the shower's lukewarm spray until my shivering stopped. But even the water couldn't wash away the memory of his touch, the way his thumb had pressed against my pulse, the dark intensity in his eyes when he'd looked at my stomach. Whatever decision you're making, how had he known? I wrapped myself in my threadbare robe and moved to the small drawer beside my bed. The envelope was there, hidden beneath old bills and expired coupons. A small white rectangle that contained proof of the life growing inside me. I pulled it out with shaking hands, staring at the sealed flap I hadn't been able to open since the technician had handed it to me 3 days ago. "You can look at the images if you want," she'd said kindly. "Some women find it helps with the decision." But I'd known it would make it harder, knew that seeing the tiny form, the heartbeat flickering on the screen, would shatter what little resolve I had left. I couldn't keep it. I couldn't afford it. Not financially, not emotionally, not in any way that mattered. The father was gone, had been gone for weeks before I'd even known I was pregnant. A mistake, a moment of weakness with someone I'd thought I could trust. He'd disappeared the moment I'd told him, blocking my number, moving out of his apartment, erasing himself from my life with brutal efficiency. I was alone. Completely, utterly alone. And bringing a child into this, into my poverty, my instability, my barely held together existence, would be selfish, would be cruel. So tomorrow, I would end it. Would make the practical choice, the responsible choice, the only choice that made sense. I moved to the kitchenette, envelope still in my hand, and reached for the matches I kept for the rare occasions when the electricity cut out. The gas stove clicked to life, a small circle of blue flame that cast dancing shadows across the walls. I should have just thrown the envelope away. Should have tossed it in the trash and been done with it. But something in me needed the ritual, needed the finality. I held the corner of the envelope to the flame and watched it catch. The paper blackened and curled, the edges glowing orange before crumbling into ash. I dropped it into the sink, watching until there was nothing left but gray powder and the faint smell of smoke. There. Done. Decided. I turned off the stove and crawled into bed, pulling the thin blanket up to my chin. Outside, the rain had started again, drumming against my window in an endless rhythm. I closed my eyes and tried not to think about dark eyes and dangerous smiles, about the weight of a hand on my wrist, about decisions that felt like drowning. Sleep came eventually, fitful and full of dreams I couldn't remember. But when I woke the next morning to pounding on my door, when I stumbled out of bed with my heart racing and my hands shaking, when I looked through the peephole and saw two men in suits standing in my hallway with expressions that promised violence, I realized that last night hadn't been a random act of kindness. It had been something else entirely. And whatever I'd stumbled into, whatever invisible line I'd crossed by accepting that ride, by letting him touch me, by burning that envelope, there was no escaping it now. The pounding came again, harder this time, rattling the cheap door in its frame. My mouth went dry as I pressed my eye back to the peephole, my heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. The two men weren't from last night, weren't the security guards who'd flanked him in the diner. These were different. Older, harder, with faces that looked like they'd been carved from stone, and then broken a few times for good measure. One had a scar running from his temple to his jaw. The other wore sunglasses, despite the gray morning light filtering through the hallway's grimy window. "We know you're in there," the scarred one said, his voice carrying easily through the thin door. "Open up. We just want to talk." Everything in me screamed to stay silent, to pretend I wasn't home, to hide under my bed like a child afraid of monsters. But my car keys were hanging on the hook by the door, visible through the peephole's fisheye lens. My shoes were by the mat, signs of life that made pretending pointless. "Who are you?" I called out, hating how my voice trembled. "What do you want?" "We're associates of someone you met last night." Sunglasses stepped closer, and I could see my distorted reflection in his lenses. Dominic Russo. Ring any bells? Dominic Russo. The name detonated in my mind like a bomb, sending shrapnel through everything I thought I knew. I'd heard that name before, everyone in the city had, whispered in hospital break rooms, muttered by cops who came in with gunshot victims they couldn't quite explain, printed in newspapers with words like alleged and suspected and organized crime. The Russo family wasn't just powerful. They were power. They owned half the city's businesses, controlled the other half, and made people who crossed them simply disappear. And I'd gotten into a car with him, let him touch me, let him see where I lived. "I don't know what you're talking about," I said, backing away from the door. "You have the wrong apartment. Apartment 4C, right? Lily Chen, age 26, works at St. Mary's Hospital, originally from—" "Stop," my voice cracked. "Please, just stop. I don't know anything. He just gave me a ride home because of the rain. That's all. I don't—" "We're not here to hurt you," Scarface said, though nothing about his tone was reassuring. "Mr. Russo wants to see you. Today, now. I have work. I have a shift in 3 hours and I can't. Already handled. Called in sick for you. Mrs. Patterson in scheduling sends her regards." Sunglasses pulled out his phone, tapped something, then held it up. Even through the peephole, I could see my hospital schedule on his screen, my personal, password-protected schedule. You're free all day. Lucky you." The casual violation of my privacy, the ease with which they'd infiltrated my life, made bile rise in my throat. This wasn't a request. This was a summons from someone who didn't accept no for an answer. "What if I refuse?" I whispered. "Then we stand here and wait. Mr. Russo is a patient man, but his patience has limits." Scarface checked his watch, a Rolex, I noticed, catching the light. "He's expecting you in 45 minutes. I'd suggest you start getting ready. And if I call the police?" The laughter that followed was cold enough to frost the air. "Sweetheart," Sunglasses said, "who do you think pays half their salaries?" They weren't bluffing. I could hear the truth in every word, see it in their relaxed postures, in the way they owned this hallway like they owned everything else. These were men who'd never faced consequences, who operated in a world where rules bent around them like light around a black hole. I had no choice. Had never had a choice, probably, from the moment I'd met those dark eyes in the diner. "I need to get dressed," I said finally, defeat heavy in my voice. "I need 15 minutes. You have 10. But they stepped back from the door, and I heard them take positions on either side. "Guards, not guests. Don't try the window. We're 4 floors up, and the fire escape is rusted through. You'd break your neck." I moved away from the door on shaking legs and stood in the center of my tiny apartment, trying to breathe, trying to think. My phone was on the nightstand. I could call someone, but who? I had no family, no close friends, no one who'd believe me anyway. "Hi." I accidentally caught the attention of a Mafia boss, and now his people are outside my door. It sounded insane even in my own head. My hand moved to my stomach, that unconscious gesture that had become habit over the past 3 months. Whatever decision you're making, had he known then? Had he somehow seen, sensed, understood what I'd been planning to do today? I pushed the thought away and grabbed clothes from my closet. Jeans, a sweater, my only jacket that didn't have stains or holes. Nothing fancy, nothing that suggested I was trying to impress anyone. I dressed quickly, mechanically, then pulled my hair into a ponytail and stared at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. I looked terrible, dark circles under my eyes, lips bitten raw, skin pale as paper. I looked like exactly what I was, a woman drowning, going under for the 3rd time, with no one to pull her back up. The appointment. I had an appointment at 2 o'clock, and if I missed it, I'd have to reschedule, and waiting another week felt impossible. Like standing on a ledge and being told to just keep balancing, keep holding on, keep pretending the ground wasn't rushing up to meet you. I grabbed my phone and typed out a quick message to the clinic. "Emergency. Need to reschedule. We'll call later." The response came immediately. "Next available appointment is in 3 weeks. 3 weeks. 21 more days of this secret, this wait, this impossible decision." I shoved the phone in my pocket and opened the door. The 2 men straightened immediately, and Scarface gestured toward the stairs with exaggerated politeness. "After you." The walk down felt like descending into hell. Each step brought me closer to something I couldn't escape, couldn't fight, couldn't even fully understand. The car waiting outside was different from last night's Mercedes. This one was a black Escalade with windows so dark they looked like voids. The back door opened as we approached, and I climbed in because what else could I do? Sunglasses got in beside me. Scarface took the front passenger seat. The driver, another massive man with dead eyes, pulled into traffic without a word. "Where are we going?" I asked, my voice barely audible over the engine's purr. "Somewhere private," Sunglasses said. "Somewhere you two can talk without interruption." "About what?" "I told you I don't know anything. Last night was the first time Mr. Russo has personally intervened in someone's life in over 2 years. He turned those reflective lenses toward me. Whatever you think you are to him, whatever you think this is, you're wrong. This is bigger." "I'm nobody," I whispered. "I'm just a nurse who needed a ride home. If you were nobody, we wouldn't be having this conversation." The city blurred past the windows, familiar streets giving way to unfamiliar ones, neighborhoods I'd seen only in magazines and movies. The buildings grew taller, cleaner, more expensive. The people on the sidewalks wore clothes that cost more than my monthly rent. We were heading into the heart of the city, into the parts that people like me only ever saw from a distance. The Escalade pulled into an underground garage beneath a building that looked like it was made entirely of glass and steel. The parking level was nearly empty, except for a collection of luxury cars that probably cost more collectively than my hospital made in a year. We stopped near a private elevator, and Scarface opened my door. 12th floor, he said. Penthouse, he's waiting. My legs barely held me as I stepped out. The garage was cold, the fluorescent lights harsh, and somewhere in the distance, I could hear water dripping with metronomic precision. The elevator opened with a soft chime, revealing an interior lined with mirrors and dark wood. I caught my reflection multiplied infinitely, a small, terrified girl surrounded by men who looked like they ate fear for breakfast. The ride-up was silent except for the mechanical hum of movement. My stomach dropped as we rose, and for a dizzying moment, I thought I might be sick. But then the doors opened, and all thoughts fled. The penthouse was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the entire city, spread out like a glittering circuit board beneath a gray sky. The furniture was all leather and chrome, expensive art on the walls, a bar in the corner stocked with bottles that probably cost more than my car. Everything screamed wealth, power, taste. And standing by the windows, backlit by that pale morning light, was Dominic Russo. He'd changed from last night's wet coat and suit into something more casual. Dark slacks, a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms corded with muscle and traced with scars. His hair was slightly damp, like he'd recently showered, and when he turned to face me, those dark eyes held the same intensity I remembered. But there was something else there now. Something that looked like barely contained fury. "Leave us," he said quietly, not taking his eyes off me. The men retreated without a word, and I heard the elevator doors close behind them with a finality that made my heart stutter. We were alone. Completely, utterly alone in this glass tower high above the city, and nobody knew where I was. Nobody would hear me if I screamed. "Sit," he said, gesturing to a leather sofa that probably cost more than my college education. I'd rather stand. It wasn't a request. His voice was still quiet, but steel had entered it. Command, authority, the kind of voice that moved armies and toppled empires. I sat. He moved closer, prowling really, with the grace of something predatory. He stopped a few feet away, hands in his pockets, studying me with an intensity that felt like being dissected. "You burned it," he said finally. The words hit me like a physical blow. "What?" "The ultrasound. You burned it last night." His eyes never left mine. I could smell the smoke on you this morning. Paper, ink, something medical. My blood turned to ice. "How could you possibly?" "Because I had someone watching your building." He said it casually, like admitting to surveillance was perfectly normal. "Because from the moment I saw you in that diner, I knew you were hiding something. And when you touched your stomach like that..." He gestured, mimicking my unconscious protective motion. "I knew exactly what. You had no right. I have every right." He crouched in front of me suddenly, bringing us eye to eye, and the movement was so fast, so fluid, that I flinched back into the sofa. "Because that baby you're carrying, that secret you're so desperate to erase?" His hand reached out, and I thought he might touch my stomach, might violate that last boundary. Instead, his fingers caught my chin, tilting my face up to meet his gaze. And what I saw there stole my breath. Possession. Absolute, terrifying possession. "It's mine," he whispered. "Isn't it?" The world tilted. My vision blurred at the edges, black spots dancing across his beautiful, terrible face. This wasn't possible. This was insane. The father was gone. Was some forgettable mistake, But then pieces started clicking together with horrible clarity. The night 3 months ago when I'd met someone at a hospital fundraiser. The man who'd been charming and intense, and had looked at me like I was the only person in the room. The way he'd touched me, possessed me, made me forget everything except the heat between us. The morning after, when I'd woken alone, when I'd assumed it had been exactly what it looked like. A one-night stand. Nothing more. I'd never seen his face clearly. The hotel room had been dark, the champagne had been flowing, and I'd been so desperate to feel something, anything, that I hadn't asked questions. No, I breathed. But even I could hear the lie in it. Yes. His thumb traced my jawline, a gesture that should have been gentle, but felt like branding. 3 months ago, the Roosevelt Hotel, room 712. You wore a blue dress that I ripped getting off you. Oh God. Oh God. Oh God. Oh, that wasn't you, I whispered, even as my mind overlaid that night's memories with this man's face, this man's voice, this man's hands. You didn't look like... I wore contacts, styled my hair differently, gave you a fake name. His smile was sharp enough to cut. I was in the city for one night, trying to be someone else for a few hours. Someone normal. Someone who could meet a beautiful woman and just... exist. Marcus, I breathed, remembering the name he'd given me. You said your name was Marcus. I lied. He released my chin and stood, moving to the windows, putting distance between us. About everything, except how I felt that night. That was real. My hands were shaking so badly I had to clasp them together. You used me. We used each other. He didn't turn around. You wanted to forget whatever was hurting you. I wanted to pretend I was someone who could have normal things, normal nights, normal connections. And then you disappeared, because I had to. Now he did turn, and his face was harder than I'd ever seen it. Because I'm not Marcus, the hospital administrator from Seattle. I'm Dominic Russo, and people who get close to me end up dead. It was supposed to be one night, safe, contained, forgotten. I tried to find you, I admitted, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. I called the number you gave me, but it was disconnected. I went back to the hotel, but they had no record of your name. It was like you'd never existed. I'm very good at not existing when I want to. So why show up now? Anger was building beneath the fear, hot and sharp. Why reveal yourself? Why not just let me handle this on my own? Because I saw you in that diner, and I knew. He moved toward me again, and this time I couldn't tell if he was angry or something else entirely. I knew you were pregnant, knew you were planning to end it, knew you were carrying my child and intended to erase it like it meant nothing. It means everything, I shot back, standing now, meeting his approach with whatever courage I could scrape together. It means I can't afford to eat most days. It means I work myself into the ground and still can't make rent. It means bringing a child into a world where I can barely survive myself. How dare you judge me for being practical? Practical. He said the word like a curse. You call destroying my heir practical? Your heir? I laughed, and it came out half hysterical. I didn't even know who you were. I thought the father was some guy who didn't want me, who ran the moment things got complicated. I thought I was alone. You were never alone. His hands caught my shoulders, not rough but firm, holding me in place. From the moment I found out you existed, from the moment I saw you again, you've been mine. Protected. Watched. Mine. I'm not yours. I'm not anyone's. But my voice was weakening, and we both knew it. You can't just decide. I can decide whatever I want. His face was inches from mine now, his breath warm against my lips. I'm Dominic Russo. I own this city. I control more money than you can comprehend. And you, his hand moved to my stomach, pressing flat against the sweater, feeling for something that wasn't visible yet. You're carrying the only thing in this world that matters more than power. Tears burned my eyes. I can't do this. I can't be what you want. I can't. You already are. His other hand cupped my face, thumb brushing away a tear I hadn't realized had fallen. You're the mother of my child. That makes you untouchable. Sacred. Mine. The word again. Mine. Possessive and absolute and terrifying in its certainty. I was going to end it today, I whispered. I had an appointment. I know. My people intercepted the confirmation call. His eyes darkened. That's why you're here. That's why we're having this conversation. Because I will burn down every clinic in this city before I let you destroy what's mine. It's not about ownership. Everything is about ownership. He released me suddenly, stepping back, running a hand through his hair in the first gesture of agitation I'd seen from him. You don't understand the world you've stumbled into. You don't understand what I am, what I'm capable of. What I'll do to protect what belongs to me. I'm not a possession. No. He turned back to me, and something in his expression softened fractionally. You're something far more dangerous. You're the woman I can't stop thinking about, the one who got away, the one who haunts me 3 months later like a ghost I can't exorcise. He moved closer again, inevitable as a tide. And now you're carrying my child. And that changes everything. Everything. I don't want your world, I said desperately. I don't want danger and violence and... Too late, his hand caught mine, pressing it against his chest, letting me feel his heartbeat, strong, steady, terrifyingly real. You're already in it. Have been since the moment I touched you. Since the moment I decided you were worth remembering. This is insane. Yes. He smiled then, sharp and beautiful, and completely without mercy. But you're going to stay anyway. You're going to move into this building, into a secure floor where I can protect you. You're going to stop working yourself to death. You're going to let me take care of you, take care of our child. And you're going to learn that sometimes surrender is the only path to survival. And if I refuse, his smile widened, then I'll make you a prisoner in the most beautiful cage you've ever seen until you understand that this isn't a negotiation. This is inevitability. He meant it. Every word. I could see it in his eyes, feel it in the way he looked at me, like I was already his, already caught, already owned. And the most terrifying part, some dark, broken part of me wanted to let him win. The silence that followed his declaration felt like standing in the eye of a hurricane, deceptively calm, but with destruction spinning all around us. I stared at Dominic Russo, this man who'd upended my entire existence in less than 24 hours, and tried to find words that didn't exist. You're insane, I finally managed, pulling my hand back from his chest. You can't just kidnap someone and call it protection. I'm not kidnapping you. He moved to the bar, poured amber liquid into 2 glasses with movements that spoke of ritual, of control. I'm offering you a choice. Stay here willingly. Let me provide for you and our child. Accept my protection. Or... He turned back, extending 1 glass toward me. Fight me every step of the way while I do it anyway. That's not a choice. That's an ultimatum. Welcome to my world. He took a sip when I didn't reach for the glass, his eyes never leaving mine. Everything is an ultimatum when you have enough power to enforce it. I wrapped my arms around myself, feeling suddenly cold despite the penthouse's perfect temperature. What about what I want? What about my life, my job, your life? He set both glasses down with deliberate care. You mean the life where you work double shifts and still can't afford to eat properly? Where you live in a building where the locks don't work and the heat cuts out every winter? Where you're so exhausted you can barely stand, let alone take care of yourself? His voice had gone low, dangerous. That life ends today. It's my life to ruin, not anymore. He crossed the space between us in 3 strides, and suddenly his hands were framing my face, forcing me to meet his gaze. The moment you conceived my child, your life became my responsibility. Your safety became my obsession. And I don't fail at things I'm obsessed with. His thumb traced my cheekbone, and I hated how my body responded, how my breath hitched, how warmth pooled in my stomach, how some traitorous part of me leaned into his touch. I don't know you, I whispered. Not really. That night was a lie. The night was the only truth either of us told. His forehead pressed against mine, and the intimacy of it stole my breath. Everything else, the names, the circumstances, the pretense, that was the lie. But what happened between us, that was real. One night created a life. His hands slid down to my shoulders, then my arms, then finally to my stomach, where they settled with possessive certainty. One night bound us together in a way that can't be undone. And I won't apologize for wanting to protect what's mine. Stop calling me that. Why? Because it scares you? His smile was sharp against my temple. Because you know it's true? Because some part of you wants to belong to someone after being alone for so long? The words hit too close to home, exposed nerves I'd been trying to protect. You don't know anything about me. I know more than you think. He stepped back, creating distance, and moved to a leather portfolio on the glass coffee table. When he opened it, I saw papers, documents, photographs, records. My entire life laid bare. Lily Chen, born in San Francisco to parents who died in a car accident when you were 3, bounced through 6 foster homes before aging out of the system at 18. Put yourself through nursing school working 3 jobs, no family, no close friends, no one who would notice if you disappeared. Each word was a knife, cutting deeper than the last. You investigated me. I investigate everyone. He closed the portfolio, but the damage was done. I had to know who you were, what threats you might pose, what vulnerabilities you might have. And what did you find? My voice was bitter. That I'm nobody? That I'm so completely alone that you can just take me? I found that you're one of the strongest people I've ever encountered. The admission seemed to cost him something. I found that you've survived things that would have broken most people. I found that you keep getting up, keep fighting, keep trying, even when the world makes it clear you're not wanted. Tears burned my eyes again. Don't. Don't what? Tell you the truth? Tell you that I see you in a way no one else has? He moved closer again, and God help me, I didn't back away. You think I want this? You think I plan to fall for some woman I met at a charity event? You think I wanted to spend 3 months obsessing over someone I'd promised myself to forget? You fell for me? The words came out broken, like a man jumping off a building. His hand caught my chin again, that gesture of control that was becoming familiar. And now I'm bringing you down with me, because I'm too selfish to let you go. Because the thought of you out there, alone and struggling, carrying my child and planning to erase it. His jaw clenched. It makes me want to burn the world down. This is crazy. But my voice lacked conviction, probably. He released me and moved back to the windows, staring out at his city. But crazy is all I know. Crazy keeps me alive, and now crazy is going to keep you safe. I should have run. Should have demanded he let me leave, should have screamed for help, should have done anything except stand there feeling the ground shift beneath my feet. Instead, I asked, "What happens now?" He turned, and triumph flashed in his eyes. He knew he'd won something, even if I wasn't ready to admit it. Now, you see the apartment I've prepared for you. You meet the security team that will be with you at all times. You let the doctor I've hired examine you and make sure you and the baby are healthy. And then, he checked his watch, a gesture so casual it seemed obscene. We discussed terms. Terms, how this works, what I expect, what you're allowed to do. His smile was sharp. What happens if you try to run? I'm not agreeing to anything. You don't have to agree. You just have to accept. Before I could respond, the elevator chimed. The doors opened, and a woman stepped out. Elegant, 50s, with silver hair pulled into a severe bun, and eyes that assessed me in seconds. She wore a tailored suit that screamed authority and carried a leather medical bag. "Dr. Sarah Chen," Dominic said, and I noticed he'd positioned himself between me and the elevator, blocking escape. "She'll be handling your prenatal care from now on. No relation," he added, noting my expression. "Just a coincidence. I have a doctor. You had a doctor at a free clinic who sees 60 patients a day and barely remembers your name." His voice was flat. "Dr. Chen is one of the best obstetricians in the country. She'll be monitoring you weekly." Dr. Chen stepped forward, her smile warm despite the insanity of the situation. "Ms. Chen, or may I call you Lily? I understand this is overwhelming, but I promise my only concern is your health and your baby's well-being. I was scheduled to..." The words stuck in my throat. "I had an appointment today." Understanding flickered in her eyes. "An abortion consultation. Yes, I'm aware. May I ask, have you definitely decided against it, or are you still considering your options?" The question was so direct, so professional, that it caught me off guard. I'd expected judgment, pressure, manipulation, not genuine inquiry. I don't know," I admitted. "Everything is happening so fast, and I can't think, and he," I gestured at Dominic, "is acting like the decision's already made." "The decision is made," Dominic said quietly. "But Dr. Chen is right that you should understand what you're carrying before we move forward. Let her examine you. Let her show you the ultrasound. Then we'll talk. And if I still want to terminate," his expression went cold enough to frost glass. Then we'll have a very different conversation. Dr. Chen cleared her throat gently. Perhaps we could use one of the guest bedrooms for the examination, give everyone some privacy and space to process. Dominic nodded once, and Dr. Chen gestured toward a hallway I hadn't noticed before. I followed her on numb legs, aware of Dominic's eyes tracking my every movement. The bedroom she led me to was stunning. King-sized bed with silk sheets, attached bathroom with marble counters, windows overlooking the city, casual wealth that made my apartment look like a storage closet. I know this is frightening, Dr. Chen said as she set up a portable ultrasound machine she'd pulled from her bag. But I want you to know, whatever you decide, I'll support you. My loyalty is to you and your baby's health, not to Mr. Russo's wishes. He's paying you. He is, quite generously. She smiled wryly. But I've been doing this for 30 years, and I don't compromise my ethics for anyone, regardless of how powerful they are. Now, if you could lie back and lift your shirt, I did, mechanically, staring at the ceiling as she squirted gel on my stomach. The wand pressed against my skin, and the machine beeped to life. Let's see what we have here, Dr. Chen murmured, adjusting angles, watching the screen. You're about 13 weeks along, yes? 12 and a half. Perfect. Right in that sweet spot where we can see quite a bit. She turned the screen toward me. There's your baby. I didn't want to look. Had spent 3 days specifically avoiding looking, knowing it would make everything harder. But my eyes betrayed me, drawn to the black and white image that swam into focus. And there it was. Not an embryo anymore. Not just cells. A baby. Tiny, perfect, with a head and body and little limbs that moved. Actually moved as we watched. The heartbeat pulsed on the screen, fast and strong, a rhythm that matched my own racing heart. Oh, I breathed, and the sound came out broken. Beautiful, isn't it? Dr. Chen's voice was gentle. About 3 inches long now. All major organs have formed. In another month, you'd be able to feel movement. A tear slid down my temple, hot and unwelcome. I can't afford this. Affordability isn't a factor anymore. She handed me a tissue. Mr. Russo has made that clear. Whatever you need, medical care, housing, food, support, it's handled. At what cost? She paused, considering. That's between you and him. But from a medical standpoint, you're underweight, anemic, and showing signs of exhaustion-related stress. The baby is healthy now, but another month of your current lifestyle would put both of you at risk. Her eyes met mine. Whatever he is, whatever his world involves, he's not wrong that you need help. I've been fine on my own. You've been surviving. That's not the same as fine. She turned off the machine and wiped the gel from my stomach. Take some time. Look at these images. Think about what you want, not what circumstances demand, but what you truly want. Then make your decision. She handed me a strip of ultrasound photos. 4 images of that tiny life, proof that couldn't be burned away this time. Then she left, closing the door softly behind her. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at those images until they blurred. The heartbeat had been so fast, so strong, so alive. My hand moved to my stomach again, and this time I let myself imagine it. Feeling movement, watching my body change, holding something that was mine, completely mine, for the first time in my life, but the cost. God, the cost. Dominic Russo wasn't offering charity. He was offering ownership, protection wrapped in possession, safety wrapped in surrender, and if I accepted, if I let him fold me into his world, I'd never be free again. A knock on the door made me jump. "Come in," I called, expecting Dr. Chen, but it was Dominic who entered, closing the door behind him with a soft click. He'd rolled his sleeves down, buttoned them at the wrists, a gesture of formality that somehow made him more dangerous, not less. "She showed you," he said, not asking. I nodded, unable to speak. He crossed to the bed and sat beside me, close enough that I could feel his heat. His hand extended, and after a moment, I gave him the ultrasound photos. He studied them in silence, and I watched his face transform. The hardness melted into something raw, something vulnerable. His thumb traced the tiny form on the paper, and when he looked at me, his eyes were bright. "I never thought I'd have this," he said quietly. "I'm 34 years old. I've spent 15 years building an empire, making enemies, watching people close to me die. I accepted that family wasn't for me, that bringing someone into my world would be cruel. It would be. Yes." He didn't deny it. "But here we are anyway. Here you are, carrying something I didn't know I wanted, until I saw you in that diner and realized what I'd lost." "You lost nothing. You walked away." "I know." His hand found mine, threading our fingers together, and I've regretted it every day since. "When my people told me they'd found you, that you were pregnant, that you were planning to end it," his grip tightened. "I've never moved so fast in my life. Never been so terrified that I'd be too late." "Why do you care so much?" The question came out desperate. "You don't know me. This baby, it's just an accident, a mistake. This baby is the only good thing I've ever created." His free hand moved to my stomach, pressing flat. "Everything else in my life is destruction, violence, blood and money and power built on other people's suffering. But this?" He looked at me with an intensity that stole my breath. "This is life. Hope. A chance to be something other than the monster everyone thinks I am. You're using me. I'm saving you." His forehead touched mine again. "Can't you see that? Can't you see that we're saving each other?" "I don't want to be saved by you, liar." The word was soft, almost gentle. "You've been drowning for so long you've forgotten what breathing feels like. Let me pull you out. Let me give you air. And what do you get? Everything." His lips brushed my temple. "My child. My family. My reason for being something better than what I am. That's too much pressure. You're already carrying the weight of the world. What's one more burden?" His smile was sad. "Besides, you're stronger than you know. Strong enough to survive me. Strong enough to maybe even save me." "I can't save anyone. I can barely save myself." "Then let me save both of us." The words hung between us, heavy with promise and threat. Outside, the city sprawled in all directions. His city, his kingdom, his world. And I was standing on the edge of it, being offered a crown I didn't want and couldn't refuse. "If I stay," I whispered, "if I let you do this, what happens to me? Who do I become?" "You become mine." His hand cupped my face. "Completely, utterly, irrevocably mine. Under my protection. In my care. Part of my world in ways you can't understand yet. I'll lose myself. No." His thumb traced my lips. "You'll find yourself. The version that isn't exhausted and terrified and alone. The version that's safe, provided for, cherished." "Cherished," I repeated numbly. "By a man who probably kills people. I definitely kill people." He said it so casually I almost laughed. "But I've never hurt someone I love. And I've never loved anyone the way I—" He stopped, jaw clenching. "The way I'm going to love you. You can't love someone you barely know. Watch me." It sounded like a threat, like a promise, like both. I looked down at our joined hands, his scarred and strong, mine small and pale, and tried to imagine a future where this made sense, where I accepted his world, his protection, his possession, where I let myself be pulled into the darkness and trusted him to be my light. It should have been impossible. Should have been. "I need time," I said finally. "I need to think about this without you watching me, without feeling like I'm suffocating." "No." The word was flat, final. "Dominic, you have 10 seconds to decide. Stay willingly, or I'll make the decision for you." His eyes went cold. "One way or another, you're not leaving this building without my permission. The only question is whether you walk into your new life or I carry you. That's not a choice. It's the only choice I'm offering." He stood, towering over me. 10 seconds started the moment I sat down. "You're at about 3 left." My heart hammered. My hands shook. Every rational thought screamed to run, to fight, to refuse, but I looked at the ultrasound photos scattered on the bed, at that tiny heartbeat frozen in time, at the future growing inside me that deserved better than struggle and poverty and my stubborn pride. And I looked at Dominic Russo, this beautiful, terrible man who'd upended everything, and saw something in his eyes that looked almost like desperation beneath the command. He needed this. Needed me. Needed us. And I was so tired of being alone. "Okay," I whispered. "I'll stay." The word hung in the air between us for 3 heartbeats before Dominic moved. His hands caught my face, and he kissed me. Fierce and claiming and absolutely overwhelming. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't asking. It was a statement of ownership, of victory, of relief so profound it felt like violence. When he pulled back, his eyes were blazing. "Say it again." "I'll stay." My voice was steadier this time, though my hands were shaking against his chest. "But I have conditions." A smile curved his lips, predatory and pleased. "Of course you do. I want to keep working. Not full-time, maybe, but I'm not going to just sit in some gilded cage and—" "No." He released me and stepped back, and the warmth of his body disappeared with him. "Absolutely not. You're anemic and exhausted. You'll work yourself into a miscarriage, and I won't allow it. You don't get to allow or disallow. That's exactly what I get to do." He moved to the window, his silhouette dark against the gray sky. "You agreed to stay. That means you agreed to my protection. And my protection includes keeping you from destroying yourself out of stubbornness. I need purpose. I need something that's mine. The baby is yours. The baby is ours," I corrected, standing on shaking legs. "And I need more than that. I'm not some 1950s housewife who'll just sit around waiting for you." He turned, and something in his expression had shifted. "What do you want?" The question caught me off guard. I'd expected more commands, more ultimatums, not inquiry. I struggled to put words to feelings I barely understood. "I want to finish my nursing degree." I was 3 semesters away from my BSN when I had to drop out because I couldn't afford it. "I want to do something with my life beyond surviving." He pulled out his phone, typed something with quick efficiency. "Done? You're enrolled at the university starting next semester. I'll have someone forward your transcripts and handle the paperwork." "Just like that?" "Just like that." He pocketed the phone. "Anything else?" "I want my own space, my own room, my own—" I gestured helplessly. "Something that's mine. Not ours. Mine. The floor below this one is yours. 3 bedrooms, full kitchen, office space, decorated however you want. The only stipulation is that my security has access." "Of course they do." I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. "They're not there to spy. They're there to keep you alive." He crossed back to me, and his hand caught my chin, that gesture again, that claiming. "You don't understand yet. The moment people know you're carrying my child, you become a target. Every enemy I've made, every rival who wants to hurt me, they'll see you as the perfect weapon. Then maybe this is a mistake. Too late." His thumb pressed against my pulse. "You're already in, already mine, already the most valuable thing in my world." "I'm not a thing. No, you're everything." He said it like a confession, like it hurt him to admit. "And that makes you infinitely more dangerous. To yourself and to me." Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression went cold. "I need to handle something. Stay here. Don't leave this room. Dominic." It's not a request. He was already moving toward the door. "I'll send someone up with food. You need to eat." "I'm not hungry." He stopped, hand on the doorknob, and looked back at me. "I don't care if you're hungry. The baby needs nutrients, and you're going to provide them, even if I have to feed you myself." Then he was gone, the door closing with a soft click that somehow sounded like a cell locking. I stood there, alone in this beautiful room, and tried to process what I'd agreed to, what I'd surrendered, what I'd gained and lost in the same breath. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, expecting spam. Instead, there were 17 missed calls and twice as many texts, all from unknown numbers. My heart sank as I opened the first message. "Is it true? Are you with Dominic Russo? The second, how much is he paying you? Third, you have no idea what you've gotten into. Fourth, get out while you still can." They kept coming, each more urgent than the last. Some were concerned. Some were threatening. All of them knew my name, knew where I worked, knew things about me that should have been private. The door opened, and I jumped. But it wasn't Dominic. It was a woman, maybe 40, with sharp eyes and sharper cheekbones. She wore a dark pantsuit and carried a silver tray laden with food. "Ms. Chen," she said, her accent British and precise. "I'm Margaret, Mr. Russo's head of household. He asked me to bring you lunch." She set the tray on a side table. Grilled chicken, roasted vegetables, fresh bread, fruit, and what looked like sparkling water. The smell made my stomach growl, despite my insistence that I wasn't hungry. "Thank you," I managed. "He also asked me to take your phone." She extended her hand, palm up. "Temporarily, just until we can secure it properly." "Secure it?" "Someone leaked your information to the press. Your number, your address, your workplace. Within the hour, you'll have reporters, rivals, and curious onlookers descending on every aspect of your life." Her expression was sympathetic but firm. "The phone needs to be wiped and replaced with something encrypted." I clutched it tighter. "It's the only thing I have that's mine." "I understand, but right now, it's also a tracking device broadcasting your location to anyone who wants to find you." She stepped closer, not threatening but insistent. "Mr. Russo is trying to protect you. Let him." Reluctantly, I handed it over. She pocketed it and gestured to the food. "Eat. Doctor's orders. I'll be back in an hour with your new phone. All your contacts will be transferred." She left, and I was alone again with food I didn't want and thoughts that wouldn't stop spiraling. I ate mechanically, forcing down bites that tasted like ash. The baby needed it. That was the only thought that mattered now. Not my pride, not my fear, not my desperate desire to maintain some semblance of control. The baby. My hand moved to my stomach, pressing against the slight swell that I'd been pretending wasn't there. 3 months. 12 weeks. A tiny life with a heartbeat that I'd seen, that I couldn't unsee. I was going to be a mother. The thought was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. Footsteps in the hallway made me tense, but they passed by. More footsteps. Voices. Low. Urgent. Male. Something was happening outside this room, outside this bubble of forced calm. I moved to the door and pressed my ear against it. "Can't let her see him like this." A voice I didn't recognize. "Bleeding out in the car." Another voice. Younger. Panicked. "Get Dr. Chen back here now, Dominic." They were talking about Dominic. I yanked the door open before conscious thought caught up. The hallway was chaos. Men in suits rushing back and forth. Someone barking orders into a phone, and a trail of blood leading toward what looked like another bedroom at the hall's end. "Miss, you need to stay in your room." One of the suited men stepped in front of me, but I ducked under his arm. "He's hurt." My nurse's instinct overrode everything else. "Let me see him." "Ma'am, Mr. Russo gave strict orders." I don't care what orders he gave. I pushed past him, following the blood trail, my heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. "I'm a nurse. Let me help." The bedroom at the end was bigger than mine, dominated by a massive bed where Dominic lay, his white shirt soaked through with red. Dr. Chen was already there, cutting away the fabric, revealing a wound that made my stomach drop. A deep gash across his ribs, still bleeding despite the pressure someone was applying. "Lily, you shouldn't be here." Dr. Chen started. "Knife wound," I said, moving to the bed on autopilot. "Looks like it missed the organs but might have nicked an artery. Have you called for an ambulance?" "No ambulances." Dominic's voice was strained but firm. His eyes found mine, dark with pain. "What are you doing here?" "Apparently keeping you from bleeding out." I grabbed gloves from Dr. Chen's bag and snapped them on. "How long ago did this happen?" 20 minutes, one of the suited men said. "Ambush on 5th Street. 3 men, all dead now." "Good for you." I didn't have space for moral judgment right now. "Dr. Chen, I need hemostatic gauze and sutures. This needs to be packed and stitched before we can even think about transport." "I'm not going to a hospital," Dominic said through gritted teeth. "Then you're an idiot." I applied pressure to the wound, feeling warm blood pulse against my palms. "But we'll argue about that after I save your life." Something flickered in his eyes, surprise maybe, or respect. "Bossy, you have no idea." I looked at Dr. Chen. "Gauze. Now." The next 30 minutes were a blur of blood and sutures and Dominic's controlled breathing as we worked to close the wound. He didn't make a sound beyond occasional sharp inhales, didn't complain, didn't even flinch when the needle went in. He just watched me with those dark eyes, and I felt the weight of his gaze like a physical thing. "There," I said finally, tying off the last stitch. "It's closed, but you need antibiotics and monitoring. If this gets infected, it won't." He caught my wrist, his grip weak but insistent. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Thank your stubbornness for keeping you conscious." I started to pull away, but his hand tightened. "Stay. You need rest. Stay." Not a request. Never a request with him. "Please." The please undid me. I nodded, and Dr. Chen quietly gathered her supplies and left, the security team filing out behind her. The door closed, and suddenly we were alone. Him bleeding and bandaged, me covered in his blood, both of us breathing too hard. "Who did this?" I asked quietly. "Enemies. It doesn't matter which ones." He shifted, wincing. "They knew I'd be vulnerable today, knew I'd be distracted. Because of me. Because I claimed you." His eyes never left mine. "Word travels fast in my world. The moment my people started investigating you, the moment they saw me in that diner with you, everyone knew, and my enemies saw an opportunity. To kill you, to hurt me. There's a difference." His hand found my stomach again, that possessive gesture. "They can't kill me easily, but they can threaten what I care about. Can make me afraid. Can use you and the baby as leverage. This is what you wanted to protect me from. This is just the beginning." His eyes were grave. "It gets worse from here, darker, more dangerous, and you're at the center of it now, whether you like it or not. I should have been terrified. Should have run screaming from this room, this building, this life. Instead, I found myself reaching out, brushing hair back from his forehead. You're an idiot for not going to the hospital. I've been called worse. I'm sure you have. My fingers traced his jawline, feeling the stubble there. But you're my idiot now, apparently. So try not to die. His smile was worth the fear. Yes, ma'am. I stayed while he slept, while his breathing evened out and the tension left his face. I stayed while the sky outside darkened and the city lights began to glow. I stayed because somewhere between the diner and the penthouse, between terror and surrender, something had shifted. I was no longer alone. For better or worse, I belonged to someone now, was claimed by someone who would bleed for me, who would kill for me, who would burn the world down to keep me safe. It should have felt like a cage. Instead, it felt like coming home. 3 days passed in a strange bubble of luxury and surveillance. Dominic healed with frightening speed, his wound knitting together faster than seemed possible. I learned later that this wasn't his first injury, wasn't even his worst. His body was a roadmap of violence, scars and old wounds that he wore like badges of survival. My new apartment was everything he'd promised. 3 bedrooms, one for me, one for the baby, one for an office where textbooks had already been delivered for my resumed studies. The kitchen was bigger than my old apartment, stocked with food I'd only ever seen in magazines. The security team was invisible, but omnipresent. Cameras in the hallways, guards at the elevator, systems I didn't understand keeping watch. I should have felt trapped, but mostly I felt safe. Dominic came every evening, sometimes bleeding, sometimes bruised, always bringing some new thing he thought I needed. Maternity clothes from designers I couldn't pronounce. Books about pregnancy, a laptop encrypted so thoroughly he claimed even the government couldn't hack it. And every evening his hand would find my stomach, feeling for changes that weren't visible yet. It's growing, he'd say, wonder in his voice. That's how babies work, I know. But knowing and seeing, he'd trail off, lost in thoughts he wouldn't share. We didn't talk about what we were, didn't define the relationship, the arrangement, the strange dance we were doing around each other. He was possessive and controlling and infuriating. I was stubborn and scared and slowly, terrifyingly, falling into something I didn't have a name for. On the 4th day, he came to me with news written all over his face. What happened? I asked, looking up from my anatomy textbook. Your apartment was destroyed last night. Fire, electrical fault, they're calling it. My blood went cold. Was anyone hurt? The building was evacuated. No casualties. His jaw was tight. But everything you owned is gone. I thought of my few possessions, threadbare clothes, cheap furniture, the mattress I'd bought used, nothing worth mourning. Nothing except my mother's necklace, I breathed. It was in my dresser, the only thing I had from her. His hand cupped my face. What did it look like? Silver chain, small jade pendant, nothing valuable, just sentimental. He pulled out his phone, typed rapidly. I'll find it. If it survived, if anyone saw it, I'll get it back. You can't just... I can do anything. He said it simply, like stating a fact. And I will. Because you're mine. And what's yours is mine. And I don't let what's mine slip away. 2 hours later, a box arrived. Inside, nestled in velvet, was my mother's necklace, slightly tarnished, smelling of smoke, but intact. I cried when I saw it, couldn't help it. And Dominic held me while I did, his arms strong and steady, his heartbeat sure against my ear. Thank you, I whispered into his chest. His lips pressed to my hair. Whatever you need, whatever you want, it's yours. I just want you to be safe. He went still. Then slowly, he tilted my face up to meet his gaze. Say that again. I want you to be safe. I want you to stop getting hurt. I want... The words tumbled out before I could stop them. I want you to stop making me terrified that one day you won't come back. Lily. My name on his lips was a prayer. Are you saying you care? Of course I care, you idiot. I wiped at my tears furiously. You're the father of my baby. You've given me everything. I stopped, the truth too big to voice. I've what? You've made me feel like I matter. The admission hurt. Like I'm not just surviving, like I'm living. His kiss was different this time, gentle, almost reverent. Like I was something precious that might break. You matter more than anything, he murmured against my lips. You and the baby. You're my entire world now. Everything I do, every decision I make, it's all to keep you safe, even if it means destroying my apartment. He pulled back, guilt flickering across his face. You knew. I guessed. Electrical faults don't happen the same week you want to erase my old life. I should have been angry. Somehow I wasn't. You wanted to make sure I couldn't go back. I wanted to make sure you wouldn't want to go back. His thumb traced my lips. Was I wrong? I looked around my apartment, at the luxury, the safety, the life he'd built for me in days. Then I looked at him, scarred and dangerous, and looking at me like I was salvation itself. No, I admitted quietly. You weren't wrong. His smile could have lit the city, then stay. Not because you have to, because you want to. I'm still scared. Good. Fear keeps you careful. His hand found my stomach again, but you're not alone anymore. You'll never be alone again. And standing there, wrapped in his arms, feeling our baby grow between us, I believed him. For the first time in my life, I believed someone when they promised not to leave. 6 months changed everything. My body transformed in ways that terrified and amazed me. The subtle swell became undeniable, a round curve that Dominic couldn't stop touching. Every morning, he'd press his palm against my stomach and wait, patient as stone, until he felt movement. The first time the baby kicked against his hand, I watched a man who commanded empires break down completely. There, I whispered, guiding his hand to where the tiny foot pushed. Feel that? His eyes were wet. She's strong. She or he? He kissed my stomach with reverence. Either way. Strong like her mother. School had resumed. Online classes that I took from the safety of the penthouse, with tutors Dominic hired when I struggled. My grades were better than they'd ever been when I was working myself to death. Turned out learning was easier when you weren't constantly exhausted and starving. But the world outside our bubble had grown more dangerous. There had been 3 more attempts on Dominic's life. 2 ambushes. 1 car bomb that his driver had spotted in time. Each time, he came home bleeding or bruised, and each time, I patched him up with increasingly steady hands. We'd developed a rhythm. Him pretending it didn't hurt, me pretending I wasn't terrified he wouldn't come home at all. You need to be more careful, I told him one night, as I cleaned a bullet graze across his shoulder. I'm always careful. You're always reckless. I pressed the gauze harder than necessary, and he hissed, "You have a family now. You can't just—" "I know what I have." His hand caught my wrist, stopping my motion. "That's why I fight so hard to keep it." "By getting yourself killed? By eliminating threats before they reach you?" His eyes were dark, serious. "Every man I kill, every deal I close, every enemy I destroy, it's all to build walls high enough that you and our child never have to be afraid." "I'm already afraid." My voice broke. "Every time you leave, I'm terrified you won't come back." He pulled me onto his lap, careful of my swollen belly, and wrapped his arms around me. "I'll always come back. I promise." "You can't promise that. Watch me." His lips pressed to my temple. "I've survived 15 years in this life. I'm not dying now that I finally have a reason to live." The baby kicked between us, a forceful jab that made us both smile despite everything. "See?" Dominic's hand covered mine on my stomach. "Even they agree. We're not going anywhere." At 7 months, reality crashed through our carefully constructed walls. I was in the kitchen, making tea and trying not to waddle too obviously, when the penthouse door burst open. Not Dominic. He had a key, had a code, would never enter like that. These were strangers. 3 men in dark suits with guns drawn, and behind them, "Hello, Lily." The voice froze my blood. I knew that voice. Had tried to forget it for 9 months. Marcus. No, not Marcus. The man who'd pretended to be Marcus. Tall, blonde, handsome in a conventional way that now looked plastic compared to Dominic's dark intensity. The baby's biological father. The man I'd tried to contact when I first found out I was pregnant. The man who'd disappeared without a trace. Derek. Dominic's voice came from the hallway, cold as death. He stood there flanked by his own security, blood on his knuckles from whatever he'd been doing. "I was wondering when you'd make your move." Derek, not Marcus. Another lie in a web of lies. "You know each other?" I managed, backing against the counter. "Derek Castellano," Dominic said, never taking his eyes off the other man. "Second son of the Castellano family, my biggest rival, and apparently someone with a death wish." Understanding dawned with horrible clarity. The night 9 months ago, the hotel. The man who'd seduced me, who'd been charming and attentive, and had disappeared the moment I'd tried to find him. It had all been a setup. "You used me," I breathed, looking at Derek. "That whole night, you knew who I was, knew I worked at the hospital where Dominic's mother was dying." Derek smiled, and it was nothing like I remembered. "You were supposed to be an easy mark, get you pregnant, use the baby as leverage against Russo, destroy him from the inside." He shrugged. "But you were harder to track than I expected. By the time I found you again, he already had his claws in you, the baby." My hands flew to my stomach, protective and terrified. "You're here for the baby. I'm here for what's mine." His gun rose, pointed at Dominic. "That child is Castellano blood. My heir. And you're going to give it to me, or I'm going to put a bullet in your lover's head and take it anyway. The baby isn't yours." The words came out fierce, stronger than I felt. "You have no claim. Biology says otherwise. DNA says otherwise." Dominic's voice was sharp as broken glass. "The paternity test Dr. Chen ran last month confirmed it. The baby is mine." Derek's expression flickered, confusion, then anger. "That's impossible. The timeline says Lily was with me first." Dominic stepped forward, and his men moved with him, a coordinated dance of violence waiting to happen. 3 months before your little seduction attempt. She just didn't know it was me because I was hiding, same as you. The difference is, I'm actually the father." My mind reeled. "The paternity test? Dr. Chen never— I had her run it when you were asleep." Dominic's eyes never left Derek. I needed to be sure. Needed to know if I was protecting my child, or stealing someone else's. His smile was sharp. "Turns out, I was protecting what was always mine." "You're lying." But Derek's gun hand wavered. "The test is public record now, filed with the state, witnessed by 3 independent labs." Dominic's voice was pure satisfaction. "Your plan failed before it even started. You seduced the wrong woman at the wrong time, and now you've walked into my territory making threats against my family. Then I'll kill you both, Derek's finger tightened on the trigger. If I can't have the child, neither can you. Everything happened at once. Dominic lunged forward, inhumanly fast. Gunshots cracked through the air. 1, 2, 3. I screamed and dropped to the floor, arms wrapped around my belly, sure I was about to die. Glass shattered. Someone shouted orders. More gunshots. Closer now. Deafening, then silence. I looked up slowly, my ears ringing. Derek was on the ground, blood pooling beneath him, his eyes staring at nothing. His 3 men were similarly motionless, taken down by Dominic's security with brutal efficiency. And Dominic. Dominic was standing over Derek's body, gun in his hand, breathing hard, but alive. His eyes found mine across the destroyed kitchen, and something in his expression cracked. Lily. He was moving before my name finished leaving his lips, dropping to his knees beside me, hands running over my body, checking for injuries. Are you hurt? Is the baby? I'm fine. We're fine. I was shaking so hard I could barely speak. You killed him. I'd kill 1,000 more. His hands cupped my face, and I saw genuine fear in his eyes for the first time. If he'd hurt you, if he'd touched you, he didn't. You stopped him. I grabbed his shirt, pulling him closer. You protected us. Always. His forehead pressed to mine. Always, Lily. Until my last breath. The baby kicked then, hard enough to make me gasp. Dominic's hand flew to my stomach, feeling the movement, and despite everything, the blood, the bodies, the violence, he smiled. Strong, he murmured, just like I said. The cleanup took hours, bodies removed, police paid off, stories aligned. I sat in the bedroom Dominic had carried me to, wrapped in blankets despite the apartment's warmth, watching the city lights blur through my tears. Dr. Chen arrived within 30 minutes, checking me over with thorough efficiency. Baby's heartbeat is strong, no signs of distress. You're remarkably calm, all things considered. I don't feel calm. Shock. She squeezed my hand. It'll hit you later. But physically, you're both fine. When she left, Dominic took her place on the bed beside me. He'd showered, changed, erased all visible signs of what had happened, but I could still see it in his eyes. The violence, the fear, the relief. Tell me the truth, I said quietly. About that night 9 months ago, the Roosevelt Hotel. Was that really you? Yes. No hesitation. I'd been watching you for weeks. You worked at the hospital where my mother was dying, and I wanted to understand who was caring for her. Wanted to see if you were someone I could trust. So you seduced me? I talked to you, listened to you, learned that you were kind and strong and so desperately lonely that it hurt to see. His hand found mine. The seduction was supposed to be manipulation. But halfway through that night, it became real. You became real. And then you left. Because I didn't deserve you. Because my world was too dangerous for someone like you. He laughed bitterly. And then Derek made his move, and I realized you were already in danger. Already a target. Already part of this whether I wanted it or not. When did you know I was pregnant? 2 months ago. My people were monitoring you. I couldn't help myself. Couldn't stop checking to make sure you were safe. When you went to the clinic, when I saw the records, his voice roughened. I knew I couldn't let you go through with it. Knew I had to claim you before Derek figured out what he'd set in motion. So you appeared in the diner, made yourself known. Dragged me into your world, yes. He turned to face me fully. I won't apologize for it. I won't apologize for keeping you, protecting you, making you mine. But I will ask, his thumb traced my lips, do you regret it? Any of it? I should have said yes. Should have listed all the ways my life had been upended, all the fears and dangers and loss of freedom. Instead, I looked at this man who'd killed for me, who'd built walls around me, who'd made me feel safe for the first time in my life. This man who loved our baby with a fierceness that bordered on obsession. This man who'd given me everything I'd never dared to want. No, I whispered. I don't regret it. His kiss was hungry, desperate, claiming, say you're mine. I'm yours. Say you'll stay. I'll stay. My hands tangled in his hair. I'll stay, Dominic. Forever. Forever isn't long enough. His hand pressed against my stomach, feeling our baby move between us. But it's a start. 8 weeks later, on a cold March morning, our daughter was born. The labor was long and brutal and absolutely worth it. Dominic stayed the entire time, holding my hand, letting me break his fingers with my grip, whispering promises and prayers in languages I didn't understand. And when she finally emerged, screaming and perfect and utterly alive, I watched him transform completely. "She's beautiful," he breathed, tears streaming down his face as Dr. Chen placed the tiny bundle in his arms. "Lily, she's perfect." I'd never seen him cry before, had never imagined this hard, dangerous man could break down so completely over 7 pounds of squirming infant. "What's her name?" Dr. Chen asked gently. We'd argued about names for weeks, unable to agree, but looking at her now, at her dark eyes so like her father's, at her tiny fists waving with determined strength, the answer was obvious. "Sophia," I said. "It means wisdom." "Sophia Russo." Dominic tested it, then smiled. "Perfect, strong, ours." He placed her in my arms, and the weight of her was everything. This tiny life we'd created, this miracle born from violence and passion, and 2 broken people learning to be whole. "I love you," I told her, kissing her forehead. Then I looked at Dominic. "Both of you. I love you both so much it terrifies me." "Good." He sat on the bed beside us, wrapping his arms around us both. His family, his world, his reason for everything. "Terror means you'll fight to keep this. Fight to stay alive. Fight to stay with me. Always." I leaned into him, exhausted and elated, and finally at peace. Until my last breath. Outside, the city sprawled in all directions. Dominic's kingdom, brutal and beautiful and completely under his control. Inside, we created our own world. One built on love fierce enough to survive anything. Protection absolute enough to keep us safe, and hope fragile enough to be precious. Sophia stirred in my arms, making small sounds that would soon become cries. Dominic's finger traced her tiny hand, and she gripped it with surprising strength. "She's going to be trouble," he murmured, wonder in his voice. "With you as her father? Absolutely. With you as her mother, she'll be unstoppable." He kissed my temple. "Strong, stubborn, brave enough to face down monsters. Is that what you are? A monster?" "To everyone else." His eyes met mine. "But to you, to her, I'm just a man who'd burn the world down to keep you safe. That's still fairly monstrous, I know." His smile was sharp. "But you love me anyway." He wasn't wrong. Against all logic, despite every reason not to, I did love him. Loved his darkness and his intensity, his violence and his tenderness, his obsessive need to protect and possess. And as I sat there holding our daughter, with his arms around us both and the city lights beginning to glow in the dusk, I knew I'd made the right choice. The only choice that had ever really mattered. I'd burned the ultrasound trying to erase a future I couldn't afford, but that future had found me anyway, had claimed me, saved me, loved me with a ferocity that redefined what love meant. And when Dominic looked at me with those dark eyes full of promises and threats and devotion so absolute it should have scared me, I looked back without fear, because I was Lily Russo now, mother to Sophia, protected by the most dangerous man in the city, loved beyond reason, treasured beyond measure, and finally, home. "Thank you," I whispered to him. "For what?" "For seeing me in that diner, for not letting me go, for giving me this." I gestured to our daughter, to the life we'd built. "For saving me. You saved me first." His lips pressed to my hair, lingering. "You just didn't know it yet." Sophia yawned, impossibly tiny and perfect, and settled into sleep against my chest. Outside, Dominic's world continued its violent dance. Enemies plotted, rivals schemed, dangers lurked in every shadow. But inside our glass tower, high above the chaos, we were safe. We were loved. We were home.